Welcome back. Aaron Steele here.
Brian Ricks, still here.
Still
funny.
Steele here.
That's funny. Okay.
We're still
It's loopy.
Oh, I know. Welcome back to our final session of the core solutions of Microsoft Lync Server 2013.
I know you're sad. We're leaving soon, but
We're glad you joined us for the last session of the day.
and don't forget, in a few weeks' time frame, we will have the second 337, and I will be back with Rui to give that presentation, and we'd love to have you there as well. So,
Deep into the voice and online stack.
Yeah. Basically, as a quick, the Microsoft Learning Pro and TS concepts went away. Now these are just two exams that have taken a section plus an additional section, and that's all within the process. So 337 you'll want to take regardless of who you are, and if you're looking for your MCSE communications, it's required.
Yep.
So we hope to see you back in a couple weeks. Okay.
So this session is talking about migration into Lync Server 2013. Really what we're going to talk about is an overview of the coexistence and migration. We're going to talk about the migration steps. We're going to talk a bit about planning for clients and devices, and then designing a client migration and device migration strategy. In the first segment here, we're going to talk just generically about that overview, some migration approaches that are out there. When you're talking about support, what your support boundaries need to be, what prerequisites you might have for migration, an overview of that migration service, what happens when you're coexisting from a voice perspective, and what happens when you're migrating from legacy versions. In general, Lync migration refers to the migration of users and devices and not upgrading. This is something that holds true from the LCS 2003 days. There hasn't been an in-place migration from Lync, from any of these servers where you reinstall the application on the same server and it provides these services.
You know, Exchange is the same way.
Yep.
One of the few that's a major application, SQL allows you to do in-place upgrades.
For some things.
For some things and for basic services.
But
and your
not if you're
databases may
mirrored
work,
and...
but that aside, it's not uncommon that this is the way we're going because new services are brought into play, new database structures, schemas, things of that nature.
Yep. And really the benefits of migration versus upgrading are huge. We get to do a ton more work and a ton more changes into the environment. And it results really in a clean installation, no leftovers around.
And a clean fallback, because if we've got the same server and we're upgrading and something goes wrong, there's not really a great fallback at that point. But if it's a new migration and there's a new server and things don't work well, we can move you back instantly.
Yeah, and it should be noted that when we're talking about migration, we are also potentially talking about just a voice migration, where it could be a brand new introduction of Lync 2013 Greenfield, no Lync migration perspective, but you've got a voice migration that's going on where you're migrating from legacy PBX services into Lync for a PBX. This is just a little bit of a simplification and a little definition for you, what we mean by migration versus upgrade versus coexistence and interoperability. What we really mean when we get to interoperability is two services that are going to operate successfully together over a period of time, over the period of that coexistence. From a migration approach perspective, what we're talking about is Lync infrastructure deployed side by side with existing infrastructure. Right? Similar to previous migrations, in place is not supported, and side by side, site by site is really the way we handle this, right? You roll out Lync in your new data center, or you roll out new Lync in your existing data center in the same Active Directory, and you move users from old server version to new server version, old client version to new client version, and you do that pool by pool, site by site.
Group by group, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
But the interesting thing here is because the client allows for interoperability both up and down now, we don't have this weird, we have to do things in a certain way anymore.
Right.
We can give you the new client, be on the old, be on the old, be on the new, whatever. So.
With the exception of the mobile client.
Yes, this is true.
The Lync 2013.
But it'll tell you at least.
It will.
Nicely.
The Lync 2013 mobile client is very nice, and it tells you, hey, you don't have 2013 server, go download the 2010 client.
Right. Very nice.
Now, support boundaries. This is where we do support N-1 or N-2, and we're supporting N+1 for some of the client scenarios. So but it does depend on the workload.
So what about tertiary support? Can we be N-1 and 2?
No. So tri-existence is not supported.
Right.
Still wasn't supported in 2010, isn't supported in 2013. It is supported to coexist legacy mediation servers as well. It is not supported to use 2013 SBAs against 2010 pools. So as you're introducing new 2013 services into your environment, you can't introduce 2010, those against 2010 pools. Can't set that relationship up. From a persistent chat point of view, it supports N-1 and N-2. Same for the client, but we don't support, we support the same thing, but we don't necessarily support the backwards compatibility in that a Lync 2013 client can't connect to an OCS 2007 R2 group chat server. It just sort of doesn't connect backwards. Prerequisite requirements, really, we're talking about topology. That is, you've got to have an OCS 2007 R2 or Lync 2010 server topology environment. You've got to have those servers and the latest client updates. Yes, there are some base levels, but the base recommendation would be the latest client updates. And you obviously need Microsoft SQL Server.
Darn SQL. It's everywhere.
So an overview of that service migration really is, these are all the pieces you've got to migrate over to interact with that new environment. You've got to migrate not just your users, right, but you've also got to migrate any internal line of business applications that are integrated into Lync. You've got to migrate over all your unified communications app server components that you've built. You've got to migrate over your response groups. There was a question the other day, why doesn't move response group have a what if command? It's because it's a migration. You have to do it, right? So it doesn't have a what if. The what if is it's going to move.
Right. I mean, the what if concept would be it would invoke it. Well, what's going to happen? I don't know until you do it.
It's going to move.
Right.
So move dial-in conferencing, and then last but certainly not least, you have to change the way that that Exchange Server UM is associated to Lync. From a voice route coexistence support standpoint, this is a table you should reference and look at if you're coexisting with OCS R2 or Lync 2010, because there are some small places here where things won't work and aren't supported, right? But in general, it's really nice to see that the majority of things on here are supported from a mediation server perspective.
SBA 2013 and connect it to a 2010 pool.
Right.
Wow. But why would we have a 2013 SBA if we had a still 20? Anyway.
You can't associate it to a 2010 pool. You can associate it to a 2013
well,
pool.
Think about the topology. When I go to associate the SBA, what do I associate it to? I associate it to the pool that's in the front end. And there you go.
You just shouldn't pick a 2010 pool.
That's right.
It's not supported. And then we've got a little not supported here where you can't use a 2013 mediation server for calls placed from a 2007 home server.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, there's some stuff that you just got to figure out aren't going to work.
Yeah, but it's really positive in my mind that that the majority of this slide is supported. Mm-hmm. When you're migrating from legacy versions, Lync, you migrate CMS. There is no live meeting client. It's a much easier migration path. When you're talking about migrating from OCS R2, there was no CMS, so you've got to fix that configuration that's stored in AD and get it into CMS. You've still got live meeting and Office Communicator out there, and it's similar to a migration from OCS to 2010 with some caveats. We no longer have some of those migration helpers that we did. So if you're really on an OCS 2007 R2 environment and considering going to Lync 2013, think it over, because conferencing is going to be a challenge for you.
If live meeting isn't something you're using today and scheduled meetings isn't something you're using today, bless the heavens and stars and do the move before you start using it.
Yep.
If you are using it, there really is not, unfortunately, there's not a great scenario. Either you're setting up a 2010 pool, moving them to the pool, waiting for them to move to 2010, and then migrate to 2010.
They're going to start using, you're going to have to get them to start using the web scheduling capabilities that aren't there yet.
I mean, it really is a unfortunate scenario. But keeping back so long, you're in the scenario you're in. You're -2. Now it's going to be a little painful to get up. There is a tool that's coming to help manually one by one meeting update your 2007 Lync meetings, or Lync meetings, live meetings to become Lync meetings. However, it's not released yet, and it's a per user at their desktop per meeting.
They run it in Outlook.
Right, and Outlook goes through and scavenges and looks for OCS live meetings and then updates them to Lync meetings. So not a great solution, but there is a solution coming.
Yep. Very quickly, when you migrate from Lync Server 2010 into 2013, it's a really straightforward process. You download the topology in the new topology builder, you define the new pools, and you publish using the new topology. Then you continue to use your 2013 topology. You don't use your 2010 topology builder tool anymore.
Ever.
Just
You're
don't.
Yep.
You will corrupt things. Don't do it. Your configuration data, because it already exists in the 2010 CMS, the 2013 can continue to leverage that 2010 CMS. Users performing on the Lync 2013 system, that is, you launch 2013 management shell or control panel, and you move those users, and you can potentially roll those users back. When we get into migrating from R2, you've got to go through all those old steps of merging the topology, import your legacy topology in your conference directories, rerun when your legacy topology changes, publish a new topology. This didn't really change from the OCS 2007 or R2 to Lync 2010 world. It's a bigger set of steps. And remember, conferencing is going to be a problem for you. The general of the migration steps, we're going to walk through that fairly quickly, of what are our migration steps, how we migrate it, what's the strategy, how some additional considerations, and deactivating all the other things. In general, we prepare for that deployment, right? You think about it, plan it, deploy your most recent updates on your legacy environment, you back up your legacy deployment, prep your AD, start in your first site. That is, pick a first site where you've got support, you've got people, pilot that. Pilot Edge.
People that are nice. People that are forgiving.
People that will also give you good feedback.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you need to have a group of people that are interested in testing the product and are willing to understand that it is a pilot.
Yep.
And so if it's mission critical and business critical that they're up, they're probably not good people. If they're people that are never in the office, probably not good people.
Yep.
You need to have people that are involved.
Most definitely. And then it's just simply repeat. Rinse, repeat.
Yeah, there's an interesting slide, or on that slide, that shows the general method of what we're doing. Start with a pilot pool, add it to the environment, then go to the director and edge, then we go to the pool in production,
then you take
the
your
edge
into
production, and then
repeat.
Yeah.
And then repeat for each site or each group or each
Wherever
whatever that you're migrating.
Right.
Yep. In terms of a migration strategy, this is a scenario where they've got 8 or 6 different locations, and they're going to pick one of those, and it's got a branch, and they're going to pick one in the branch, and they continue to run through these in these little groups rather than simply trying to turn everything old off and everything new on.
That's right. And in this scenario, we're saying, okay, we've tested the primary. Now we're testing the primary's branch.
Yep.
Now we're testing a federated internal with one and their branch, and then we're testing a non-global small. So you're trying to get all the permutations done of what we're looking for. So.
But still organize it and plan it out.
Plan.
Yeah.
And have metrics, because you don't know what you've done successfully.
No success.
That's right. No success.
Define success.
No defined success.
So the process of migrating Lync Server Stage 1 is simply define your strategies, pick your locations, identify your users, and pick your migration groups. At step 2, you're going to deploy those client updates and the server updates, back up that environment, run BPA against your new environment to make sure it's healthy. Then you upgrade your directory, your schema, your forest, deploy your first pool, activate those Lync Server 2013 things. It doesn't require the deployment of all your front-end servers in the environment, but it does require you to deploy some front-end and back-end server infrastructure in your environment. Again, just like 2010, a step for OCS R2 users only is to merge that topology into CMS and import that configuration.
Yeah, and again, as you stated, R2 only.
Yep.
2010 is just there.
It's there. From a routing perspective, this is where you've got to update your routing and update your access edge and your director paths as you're migrating from one environment to another. You pilot with a subset of users, right? So we've got routing here, all routing into legacy edge and legacy director. Legacy director can talk to new pool and old pool. In this pilot, we're having a legacy pool and legacy edge handle all that traffic. Active Directory users can both talk to their new pool or potentially their old pool. Edge users will come through this outside path. Once you introduce your 2013 edge pool and or director pools, now you can have your Lync users using the latest Lync edge and latest director, and your legacy users and federation users will come through that legacy edge and legacy director.
And that's important from the latest edge perspective, because now we're going to get the media to flow like we would expect it to flow. It's going to function like you'd expect it to function. All the new features and functionality exist.
Yep, and in this step, you should validate all your remote access scenarios, except for federation, obviously, because you haven't updated your federation route.
Right, because remember, federation has a single pointer.
Yep.
Where's it going?
Now you scale that new pool to production. Right? You don't change anything in the routing, you don't change anything in the coexistence, but because you're moving to production, you build this new pool to production scale.
To make sure that that works
Yep.
at the scale as desired.
Yep. Now you move your legacy users. One thing to remember, moving a 2010 user into 2013 is just move CS user. They aren't considered a legacy user anymore. Moving a 2007 user into 2013 is still move CS legacy users.
And the same migration consideration within the control panel of 2013 exists. It's a legacy user if you're searching and finding. Otherwise, it shows it as a user on a pool. It's just as a 2010 pool.
Yep.
Yeah, very simple.
On stage 8, you simply run through 1 and through 7 again if you've got additional sites that you need to do.
Rinse, repeat.
Yep. On stage 9, you enable the Lync 2013 Edge for production, right? You've piloted, you've made sure that all that works. Now you enable your legacy and latest federation, your remote access through that latest edge, and deactivate your additional things. One thing to remember, I've just moved all my users. I may not have migrated my dial and access numbers. I may not have migrated my address book, company normalization files. I need to reconfigure my meeting join page. I probably need to deploy Lync 2013 clients. And finally, especially important in migration from a 2010 to a 2013 environment, you need to relocate your CMS.
Yeah.
Don't forget, archiving and monitoring servers, any trusted application servers, enterprise voice, mediation servers, gateways, and SPAs. There's more and more and more. You're migrating. You're doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and this is where when we're in big organizations, make sure you're planning and taking your time and testing, because there is a lot of stuff you need to consider. If you're 2010, I would say it's a simpler migration because things are fairly set up like you'd expect them to be.
And they coexist a little better.
Better.
Yeah. The good piece to know here is this process is heavily and very well documented on TechNet. It lays you through step by step when you're migrating from OCS 2007 to Lync 2013 or from Lync 2010 to 2013. These are the steps you need to follow in a lot more detail than I've got on these slides even. Then again, once you're getting to the point where you're deactivating R2, you need to deactivate those pools and remove the AD computer objects, remove some of your enterprise pools, uninstall server components, clean up your file shares. This may be a case of removing DNS records and things like that. Getting into best practices for migration strategy, it's about figuring out, as we've talked, pilot your user groups. Make sure you understand your edge routing. Test your firewalls. Hey, look, does everything you need to migrate support DNS load balancing? And you've got to remember, as you're starting to migrate users, you're going to be administering some of your users in the old environment and some of your users in the new environment. So you've got dual administration during that coexistence.
And especially when you're talking OCS, that's really just... There's two different methods, and it's, nah.
Different methods, different tools, different all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So best practices for pilot. How do you select those pilot users? Well, as Brian said before, it's about picking users who will give you good, constructive, helpful feedback rather than just throwing up their arms and saying it's broken. And can help desk be used in a pilot? So there's a couple other questions here. How do you get feedback from users? Yes, you should solicit sort of formal feedback from your pilot users as they're going through these pilot phases. Give them surveys. Solicit feedback from them. Don't just rely on them to give you feedback as they see fit. And how can help desk be used in a pilot? It's really helpful during a migration to actually pilot not your help desk users, but pilot them to support the migration. That is, you want to make sure that the users follow their normal support paths so that your help desk starts to ramp up on the technologies as you're migrating people into the environment. So planning for clients and devices. This is about sort of understanding your business requirements, talking about what types of clients and devices work, what coexistence options there are, client version policies, and support requirements. You really want to talk about what types of clients you've got. So Lync Server 2013 obviously supports Lync 2010 and 2013 clients. Lync, and it's compatible with R2, but the Lync web app is the only supported model for Lync 2013 for that access and for conferencing only. In Lync 2010, this is new, it does support the 2013 client to be able to allow customers to implement Office 2013 before upgrading the Lync servers for those users. And 2010 obviously supports all these other clients, but again, no tri-existence. Coexistence options for clients. So there's some things here. This is pretty straightforward from a 2010 environment. If you're still coexisting in 2013, you're going to have to you have to know that when you migrate those users, their meetings are going to have to get rescheduled.
Yeah, whether they want to or not.
Yep. So client version policies. This is really about migrating and making sure you understand when you're deploying these new things. Do you want to take the chance of somebody logging onto your new 2013 environment with their old OCS R2 client, or do you want to have to force them when their server moves to get their client upgraded? How do you want to coordinate that? So it's about what you expect and what you want to manage as you're deploying the new client out to the users. So planning for support and device requirements. When we're talking about Lync devices, we really, really want you to use Power over Ethernet for those hard phones and Lync devices. LLDP Med and what your network and port requirements are. These are things you have to think about when you're defining and migrating devices. What are the certificates that I'm upgrading or that are on my new Lync 2013 environment going to be supported by my phone edition devices when they start to register to my 2013 environment? You really do have to design your client migration and device migration strategy. It's about, do you need to implement any group policy? Do you need to implement any policies for those devices? What's your software deployment strategy? We talked about clients yesterday. How are you going to get this new 2013 client out to all your users? What are you going to do about live meeting? And and then we've got some best practices for client device and user migrations. So again, figure out what you're currently doing in OCS 2007 R2 or Lync 2010 about Lync GPO settings, and figure out if any of those things can be done in band, and start to do them in band and change those if you need to. Figure out if you need to continue doing bootstrapping policies in 2013, and can figure out if any of the things that you used to be doing in GPO should now be being done in Lync 2013 client policies.
The answer there is yes.
If you were bootstrapping in GPO, yes, you should now change those and start doing them in the client policies. Right. So designing policies for devices. And when you're talking about policies for phone devices, you really should consider these things. You really should consider the usage profile of the devices when you're laying them out, where they're going to be located, what calling features need to be enabled or disabled, and if you're going to turn on hot desking. This is especially important when you're migrating from 2007 into 2013. If you're migrating from 2010, you've probably made all these decisions about how devices get supported in your environment. From a software deployment strategy, you really need to decide if you want to support both clients, both types of clients. And whatever your existing software distribution method is, you need to use that to deploy this new client as you should. You probably want to continue to adhere to your existing client software deployment and software distribution policies. And you want to tell people, am I providing a download link or a link inside my environment if you're giving people a download link for the tool? Mm-hmm. Though, where are people going to download MVLS only version of Lync 2013 standalone
Well, you know,
is
yeah.
beyond me.
Anyway.
So again, client deployment strategy, you really need to understand it's Windows 7 or later, or Windows 2008 SP2 or later.
Which is Windows 7.
Yep.
7 is whatever. Anyway, yes, and you know it was a big shock to a lot of people, but it, you know.
There were lots of reasons the product group decided to do it.
They wanted to leverage the new products, the new features, the new Internet Explorer requirements, and things of that nature, and so it is what it is. So you can complain if you want, but Windows 7 or greater, that's
and
what's
if you've
required.
still got a lot of XP or Vista out there, just recognize you're going to be living with the Lync 2010 client for a longer period of time.
That's right.
And you do have two paths. It is nice that you do have two paths here, because Lync 2013 as a client can be deployed in parallel with a 2007 client. Unlike the 2010 client with the 2007 client, with the 2013 client, you can install it and then prevent it from running or prevent it from signing in. So you can effectively pre-stage these things. And your other option is to update your servers and then roll your client out. Here's that important one that we need to remember. Lync 2013 removed the live meeting support.
On purpose.
On purpose.
Backwards compatibility was decided, -2 was, we're going to get rid of the code. And
Yep.
it's thinning and making things better, faster, greater, so.
Yep. And it's important to remember right here, after a user is homed on 2010 and they've got Lync 2010, scheduling new live meetings is not going to be available.
Not possible. Not an
Live
option.
meetings will not work.
You cannot use live meeting and connect to a 2013. It doesn't work. It's not
Users
there.
must reschedule. And hey, look, there is a tool planned. It's coming
soon.
We don't know when. Sorry, I can't give you a date. So best practices for device client and user migrations. Get 2013 fully configured before you migrate users.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of that just today even.
Right, as you're piloting the environment, it's one thing, right? If you want to just stand up a couple of servers just to POC and pilot the environment, that's one thing. But especially if you're coming from 2010 into 2013, roll them back before you turn on all the high availability features and all the disaster recovery features, because you will impact them if you don't do that.
Yeah, and we saw that. Things have to be outage. Things are booting. Things are happening as we're getting the environment ready to be real in production. So it is what it is. But just beware.
Yeah. Though you can pre-stage the 2013 client, it's really not recommended to pre-stage that client before you're ready to move those users. Educate.
But possible.
It's possible.
Because there are people that have rolled out the 2013 operating or Office.
Yep. Office.
And so because that's there,
the 2013 client's there. Exactly.
But things don't work. All the functionality is not correct because it's not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make sure you're
2013 yet.
Just like when you're planning out your deployment, engage your users and educate them on what the new conferencing clients are happening, especially if you're coming from an OCS 2007 R2 environment. Move users in logical groups. It's good to move these people in their sort of work groups and in their working arrangements, because it helps them, once they're in the newer world, they can start to take advantage of their team call and their other functionalities through in that mode that they're expecting. Always do pilot client, device, and user migrations. You don't want to skip that pilot step in any of these pieces. And last but not least, you want to ensure consistent security update levels for clients and devices across your deployment. You're going to cause yourself no end of problems if you don't deploy these security updates consistently across your environment.
Yeah, if you apply one to one pool or one server within the pool, make sure they're everywhere within the pool. Otherwise, that's not good.
And unless we've got some questions,
and it doesn't look like that we have any active applying to this, so
I think we're going to say thank you, everybody, for attending our Lync 2013 Jumpstart, and enjoy, and let's hope you guys can pass the Lync 336 exam.
Thanks, everyone.